guys to another episode of Tactical Tuesdays. I'm your host Nick, and today I'll be breaking down UFC Fight Night 107, Corey Anderson versus Jimi Manuwa. This is a Fight Night card in London. Not many high-profile bouts, however, these are very interesting stylistic matchups. And like usual, going from top to bottom, breaking out each fight as best as I can. And without further ado, let's just get right into it. So in the main event, we have a light heavyweight bout between Corey Anderson and Jimi Manuwa. The odds are relatively close as Manuwa comes in as a slight favorite, as a minus 145 favorite, and Anderson here as the slight underdog, as a plus 125 underdog. Both guys started off their UFC careers undefeated, and really their losses have been, actually, they both got knocked out before, but they're top 10 fighters. They've proven themselves. They've only lost to really the best guys, I guess, if you accept John Volante. But really, it's time for the UFC to start promoting other light heavyweights than those top 4 guys. So I'm very excited for this matchup. Manuwa gets another chance at winning a main event. Some guys aren't able to win those main events ever, like Travis Brown, but regardless of that, this is a very striker versus grappler kind of fight here. Pretty much everyone's coming into this bout thinking if Manuwa can keep Anderson from grabbing a hold of him at all and just keeping his range, then punch for punch, kick for kick, Anderson's eventually going to get busted up and go down. However, if Anderson is able to mix it up well, mix his striking up, that he's been working hard with Mark Henry, as well as his great conditioning and grappling, then the fight gets interesting because I don't think Manuwa's ever been presented those issues. I mean, all the grapplers, I don't know any grappler he's ever faced. Jan Blachowicz isn't a grappler. Rumble really isn't a grappler. Gustafsson isn't a grappler. Cyril Diabate isn't a grappler. Owen St. Preux isn't a grappler. Not to say that they don't have skills in the grappling department, but they're not nearly the level of grappler as Corey Anderson is. The guy is in extremely good shape, always. Pushes a mean pace. And even though he has been hurt a couple times, Tom Lawler hurt him, John Volante finished him, and Shogun rocked him, he still has a solid chin, and he always wins those later rounds, usually. So, I'm very conflicted in this fight, but I have to pick the U.S.-born fighter in Corey Anderson in Jimi Manuwa's backyard because I imagine the fight eventually hitting the ground or hitting a part where they're clinching, tied up, and for that reason, I just see Corey Anderson as the fight goes on wearing on Manuwa. Manuwa's going to really have to pace himself, and I don't think that's going to be enough. Anderson, who I've underrated in the past, pushes a really mean pace and it seems like he's figuring it out, and he should be on a 5-fight winning streak. I'm just not sure how Manuwa does when he's presented with someone as good of a grappler as Anderson, but Manuwa is a destroyer. I mean, literally, his 3 first wins in the octagon were like by TKO of injury. Like, he breaks people. Either way, I won't be surprised, but my pick, I'm leaning towards Corey Anderson having a more full performance against a guy like Manuwa, excuse me. Anyways, the next bout we have a welterweight contest between Alan Jouban and Gunnar Nelson. Nelson, the European, is coming into this fight as a minus 340 favorite, while Jouban is a plus 280 underdog. And this is a big, big step up for Alan Jouban, who's looked relatively good in the UFC welterweight division. But now he's fighting a guy in Gunnar Nelson who has beaten some top dudes, who's top 10, or maybe top 15, not sure. But it's Jouban's time to step up, and does he do this against Gunnar Nelson? I see this being a tough fight. One, because Jouban doesn't have a style like Rick Story, a style where he's just like or like Kelvin Gastelum, where he's really just like he presses forward, but he's not like relying only on his boxing. He's very versatile. He throws mean kicks, mean elbows. So like a Muay Thai style, kind of plots forward and comes forward. He's a southpaw. But who has he fought that's even close to a guy like Gunnar Nelson? Gunnar Nelson, very loose on his feet, very light on his feet, excuse me. Karate style, very good at timing opponents and blitzing in. And then when he gets you to the ground, unless you're Damian Maia, he usually finishes the fight. He's coming off a huge win over Albert Tumenov where he just completely controlled him. Both come from good camps. Both are aware of their skill sets, so they have strategies to neutralize each other. But I don't know, man. It's hard for me to pick Arnold Jouban in this fight. I would like him to win because that'd be very interesting to the mix of everything. However, Gunnar Nelson's style I see presenting a lot of problems. His movement, his unorthodox strikes, as well as his grappling. If it goes to the ground, I just don't see, even if Jouban's a competent grappler, I just don't see him matching Gunnar's. So, pretty much wherever this fight goes, I feel pretty good on Gunnar. The only thing is Jouban could steal rounds. I think he throws a bit more than Gunnar, and that's concerning because Gunnar can't be waiting, and he has to really bring it to a guy like Jouban. He's tough, but yeah, speed, overall speed, grappling. I don't know. I'm feeling Gunnar Nelson in this fight. He's a solid favorite. I understand why. Jouban, he's a worthy dog. I mean, you really can't count the guy out. He's in his 2 losses. He has his moments, but if you do MMA math, Gunnar beat Tumenov. Tumenov knocked out Jouban. Styles make fights though, but that shouldn't have anything to do with anything. And look, if Jouban wins this fight, I'm gonna say, oh, like, how did I not see that? It's just the hindsight bias. So yeah, I can't pick Jouban here. I gotta go with Gunnar. Next bout, we have a bantamweight contest between the retiring Brad Pickett and Marlon Vera. Pickett surprisingly comes into this fight as a minus 140 favorite, while Marlon Vera comes into this bout as a plus 120 underdog. I'm not gonna see who Brad Pickett's fought in the last couple years. I mean, he fights high-level guys, don't get me wrong, but I can't recall when he's won the last time. I believe he's lost like 5 out of his last 6, with one of his wins being very arguable. So for me to have any confidence on Brad Pickett, even though like he had those moments against Thomas Almeida, he trains at American Top Team, he's such a veteran, he's so experienced, he knows, like, he's a skilled fighter in his ways. But for me to trust him for how he's performing, plus the fact that he's retiring, that I don't like. And he has an advantage here. He's going into this fight with a full training camp against a guy in Marlon Vera who's taken this fight on short notice for Henry Briones. I don't know if that's going to make a huge difference or not, maybe in the later rounds. But I don't know. I want to say Brad Pickett wins because I think he has the crisper boxing here. But for me to think that Brad Pickett avoids a submission from Vera or from getting picked apart, look, it's a tough fight to call because ideally the Brit who's retiring at his home crowd gets the win, but I don't trust it at all. And it's a really tricky, there's a lot of tangibles to this fight that make it very hard to call. Because we don't know where Marlon Vera's out. You want to think he's professional, that he's in shape, getting ready, but I don't think he had a fight booked. So how's that weight cut going to be as well? A lot of missing questions here. But skill for skill, I would say Brad Pickett's the more technical boxer, even though Marlon Vera's boxing's not bad per se. And yeah, I see experience actually taking it for Pickett. I see him taking him down, minding his P's and Q's on the ground. I mean, people are going to say, oh, he has bad submission defense because of that Yuri Alcantara loss, but Alcantara hurt him bad. And if Brad Pickett takes him down and stays on top, he can neutralize Marlon Vera, I believe, even though Marlon Vera has a very attacking guard. So yeah, I see Brad Pickett going out on his shield and becoming a main coach at ATT. But he's not going to get the finish, and it's going to be a closely contested bout that could arguably go either way, but that will ultimately go to Brad Pickett. Anyways, moving on, we have a featherweight contest between Arnold Allen and Makwan Amirkhani, and these odds really couldn't get any closer. We have Arnold Allen as a slight underdog as a plus 100, while we have Makwan Amirkhani as a minus 120. Both guys, featherweight prospects, undefeated. Amirkhani's 3-0, Allen's 2-0. Both from Europe, so they'll have their fans there, but they're in Allen's hometown. Both at great gyms. Amirkhani's at SBG in Ireland with McGregor, and then Allen's at TriStar with Faraz Zahabi, and a bunch of killers also fighting on this card as Tom Breese and Joe Duffy are fighting. But yeah, regardless of that, how do their skill sets match up? And I've not been impressed with Amirkhani's striking ability. He's really good at getting the fight where he wants to, which is to the ground. And I mean, he's been fighting. He fought Masio Folan, he fought Andy Ogle, and he fought Mike Wilkinson. None of those guys are nearly as competent of grapplers as Arnold Allen, who's a judoka, who has a really strong base and is very tough to take down. And when you do take him down, good luck holding him down. So I don't know. I just see Amirkhani's striking not being developed enough. He's wild. He landed that crazy flying knee on Andy Ogle, but I think Arnold Allen's going to be okay mixing it up with him. I see him landing the bigger shots. I see if he does get taken down, that just wearing on Amirkhani. And ultimately, I think the bigger move for the UFC would be if Amirkhani won, because Amirkhani, he's a brash, confident guy. Out of SVG, I mean, it's just perfect for more killers that are brash to come out of that gym. But I don't know, I haven't been horribly impressed with what I've seen from him, from his credentials. He's a wrestler, and out-grappling a guy like Arnold Allen's tough. Plus, he's going to be very well prepared for this and fight to a T to his game plan. Those TriStar guys. Anyways, close fight, but I like Arnold Allen winning 2 of the 3 rounds, and for that reason, I got to go with Arnold Allen by unanimous decision, 29-28. Next bout, we have a lightweight contest between Joseph Duffy and Reza Madadi. The odds on this one, Duffy is a minus 750 favorite, while Madadi is a plus 525 underdog. Those are astronomical odds for Joe Duffy, and rightfully so. This fight is a complete mismatch, and it makes absolutely no sense. I mean, Joseph Duffy is coming off a thrashing over Mitch Clark, beat him in like 30 seconds. And then that fight against Poirier, who's a top 10 lightweight, who's fighting the former champ next, was a war. That he lost, but was a war. And to me, I mean, I don't know why they're trying to build him up again, because he's already built up. Joe Duffy should be fighting top 15, top 10 guys. He's proven himself. He's a talent everyone is noticing. And they're giving him a solidly easy fight in Reza Madadi, a guy who really is just known for being tough and coming back and winning in the 3rd round just by that tenacity and that pressure and his offensive wrestling game. I mean, he did that against Jan Cabral last time. He submitted Michael Johnson back in the day after eating a huge head kick. But that's not going to work against Joe Duffy. Joe Duffy's clearly aware of Reza Madadi's skill sets. So his takedown defense is going to be on point. His range is going to be on point. His awareness of how tough Madadi is going to be on point. He's not going to muscle anything. He's just going to be loose. All day his striking's better. I mean, you've seen how technical and crisp his boxing is, as well as his kicking ability. Ask Jake Lindsay that. And, I mean, he can choke people out. He has a black belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, and he's at the best gym in the world, living in dorms, I believe. I mean, that guy is like a star, lives in like a shitty dorm at TriStar. Shows how much money these people are making, which is really sad. But the point is, this guy's putting in the work. I don't know how he's going to be 4-1 after this. He should be fighting better guys than this. Madadi wins one, loses one, but really isn't impressive on the feet. And Yeah, for all those, I would say go bet crazy on Joe Duffy here. I would say this is a more confident pick than Spicely versus Santos. And Spicely won that somehow, so I guess you never know. That's what makes this game so interesting. But yeah, Joe Duffy is definitely going to win this fight. Next bout, we have a welterweight contest between Leon Rocky Edwards and Vicente Luque. I was interested to know what the odds on this fight was going to be before this week, because this is one of the fights that all fans are just looking forward to. They know Leon Edwards is a little gem in the rough. They know he has his skill set. He's a beast. And then they've seen what Luque's been able to do in his last 3 performances, just completely steamrolling people, whether it's by like anaconda choke, Darce choke, or by just like using the Henry Hoof Dutch kickboxing. He's destroying people. Very interesting fight because they're fighting in Leon Edwards' backyard, but regardless of that, both guys are coming off huge wins. Luque over Bilal Muhammad at UFC 205, and Leon Edwards over Albert Tumenov, who very underrated, but he's lost his last couple fights in the UFC. Leon Edwards is coming off a submission, a surprising submission, because no one ever thought he could do that. And training at AKA, his grappling has gotten slowly better. But we've seen that if he fights a really good wrestler like Kamaru Usman, you can control this guy. Kamaru Usman is training partners with Vicente Luque, and that I see is huge, because if Vicente Luque doesn't just strike with Leon Edwards and just keeps him uneasy and presses forward and minds his P's and Q's, because he can get clipped, and Leon Edwards' kind of striking is like a sniper. Like, he doesn't throw a lot, but when he throws, it's accurate and precise, and he can knock someone out. Asset Bajinski. But anyways, regardless of the fact that Leon Edwards got a submission in his last fight, the guy doesn't like to grapple. I think he actually got kind of lucky in that last fight, because Albert Tumenov was becoming stronger as the fight was going on, and Leon Edwards just was barely holding himself up, constantly backing up, just looking for anything to get away from the guy. So here, I don't know, I'm favoring Luque. I see the fight wherever it takes place, Luque having just advantages. I mean, Leon Edwards might be the more precise striker, but I see Luque pressing him well, overwhelming him, keeping him at the end of his punches, and being very safe, fighting a very cautious game, eventually taking him down, either just staying heavy on top or looking for his chokes. I mean, he's a good grappler too in his own right, and his record's deceiving. Would it shock me if Leon Edwards won? No, because Leon Edwards, very good striker, very underrated striker, very calculated striker. But I just see Luque having more weapons here, and I mean, if he arguably if that fight had been a 5-round fight against Tumenov, I think he would have lost, even though he got the takedown. I think it would have adjusted the way Tumenov fought. So yeah, I gotta go with Luque. Possibly a close fight, but Luque's been finishing guys. So, man, I want to say it's close, but yeah, I don't feel like Luque's gonna finish Leon Edwards. I don't think his crazy win streak's gonna be his crazy finishing streak, is gonna continue. But I see him winning at least a 29-28, 30-27 decision. Both guys are so hard to finish, and for that reason, you gotta just assume no one's getting finished. But yeah, next bout we have a rematch between light heavyweights Darren Stewart and Francimar Barrosso. A lot of controversy in this first fight. Barroso got like headbutt and was looking at the referee, but the referee never called anything, so it gave Stewart, the chance to just attack. And yeah, the first time I picked Stewart, honestly I don't know much about both guys, but I said he's a more aggressive guy. And Barroso, who has no stoppages in his UFC career, I don't think he has that one-punch power or just that threat of, like, really getting that respect. He can take you down and wear on you, but the guy's just not explosive, and he's really underperformed in the UFC, and for that reason, the fight really doesn't change. Darren Stewart comes to this bout as a minus 185 favorite. Barrosso is a plus 160. He's basically a 2-1. Just super fast and aggressive, and he's good in the clinch, and you just can never feel comfortable in there because he can really knock your lights off. He's the hometown hero in this fight. Actually, ironic that he was fighting in Brazil against Barroso and won there, and now they're in England, where it's like they both are fighting in each other's hometowns. But yeah, Barroso, even though he's technically a guy at Nova União with like a black belt in kickboxing and probably a black belt in jiu-jitsu, he just hasn't proved himself in the octagon. And he's been there enough times where I expected something I wanted to see to happen. So I gotta go with Darren Stewart. Would it shock me if Barroso somehow controlled Darren Stewart and won 2 of the 3 rounds? No. But for DraftKings viewers who are watching, definitely Darren Stewart's the pick, because if he wins, it's by stoppage and it's early, and he's the one that's more likely to get the stoppage. So, I mean, he's lucky he's even getting this fight again, Barroso. So, yeah, I gotta go with Darren Stewart by a first or second round TKO. I just see him overwhelming him, hurting him, and getting the job done. Anyways, the next bout is a heavyweight contest between Daniel Omelianczuk and Timothy Johnson. Omelianczuk comes into this fight as an underdog, as a plus 160, while Timothy Johnson comes into this bout as a minus 185 favorite. Both guys are like top 15. They're both going through the rankings, fighting people, trying to make it up to those big fights. Seems like only Francis Ngannou is going to be able to do that in recent time, at least, or right now. But yeah, it seems like Timothy Johnson here is a big favorite, and I think it's rightfully so. We've seen Daniel Omelianczuk, how you can beat him. You kind of, once again, the style that works. I really believe the style works very well as a light heavyweight or heavyweight, where it's you mix in your boxing, your striking, with your grappling, whether it's in the clinch or double legs from the outside. You're constantly making your opponent guess, and in this situation, I see it being the same thing. Timothy Johnson's a much better fighter than Anthony Hamilton. Omelianczuk's a Muay Thai stylist who kind of just walks flat-footed, and yes, he's worked at AKA. His takedown defense has gotten better, but Timothy Johnson has been wrestling his whole life. D2 wrestler, good power, underrated boxing, great chin, presses forward, is coming off a controversial loss they should have won. Yeah, I like Timothy Johnson just kind of imposing his will, and the finish will either materialize, because I don't think anyone can survive mount from a guy like Timothy Johnson on the floor in the second round if he's tired, like Omelianczuk will be. But he is the hometown favorite, Omelianczuk, and he's the more credible striker. But yeah, I gotta go with Timothy Johnson. I really like his skill set for a heavyweight, and until he fights a guy who's even better at that skill set like Kane, I see him presenting problems for a lot of guys. So yeah, give me Timothy Johnson by a second round TKO on the ground. The next bout is a lightweight contest between Marc Diakasse and Teemu Packalen. Diakasse comes to this fight very hyped as a minus 235 favorite. The odds are actually reasonable. And Packalen comes to this fight as a plus 195 underdog. To me, it's completely a strategy to just keep Diakasse rolling. 2-0 in the UFC, 12-0 in general. British fighter. Fought in the Bama organization. I think he fought in Cage Warriors. Not sure. But guy's extremely athletic and super fast and super good cardio somehow. So he's a handful for anyone. And Teemu Packalen, a relative newcomer who has a jiu-jitsu background with solid, okay striking. He landed that beautiful uppercut on T-Bot Goody. He's also relatively unproven. He's 6-1. So, to me, he might be a good prospect too, but it might just be a little too soon for a guy like that to fight Diakasse. And for that reason, I just see it being a play where they want Diakasse to win. Diakasse, really, like, he had a closely contested fight, and he stepped it up. He moved to ATT. He's in shape, and I don't know. I don't see this being close. I see Diakasse, like, we're seeing that he's like a well-rounded fighter, but then he also has the intangibles like of a John Jones, where he's just absurdly athletic and naturally gifted. And Teemu Packalen, tough guy. I see him surviving maybe a couple rounds, but third round, I don't know if he'll still be there or not. But I gotta go with Diakasse here. The next fight, we have a middleweight bout between Oluwale, Bamgbose versus Tom Breese. Bamgbose comes into this fight as a plus 250, while Tom Breese comes into this fight as a minus 300. A little bit of that Tom Breese swagger has gone away with his 2 fights to Nakamura and to Strickland. He lost against Strickland, and then Nakamura arguably won that fight. So Tom Breese here is in a situation where he should try to reinvent himself a little bit, and he's coming up to 185 against a guy like Bamgbose, who's won some, lost some in the octagon, but just brutally quick and wild, and he can catch anyone if he times it right. I mean, he's a good striker, but we've seen his cardio isn't the best, and you can take him down and hold him down, and his jiu-jitsu game isn't that great either. He's just very athletic and wild, and he likes to strike, but against a guy like Tom Breese, who's not going to jump on everything all the flim-flam he's about to do, Bamgbose, guy whose striking is very technical and very measured. I see him keeping his range, staying out of the distance of harm, and waiting for a moment where he mixes up his striking to his wrestling, getting on top. He's been working a lot on his jiu-jitsu with the guys, Renzo Gracie's gym, and I see him showing that. I see he has a huge advantage there. Nakamura is a guy who's fought in Abu Dhabi before, and he still was competitive there too. So, yeah, I see Tom Breese being the more well-rounded guy. Wherever the fight goes, he'll have a strategy to neutralize Bangbose's power and just complete crazy agility. And, yeah, wherever the fight goes, I really feel Tom Breese can win this fight. I like the odds, even though he's a minus 300, which is crazy. But, yeah, I like Tom Breese. Does he finish him? I would say he probably finishes him in the second or third round. Tom Breese doesn't rush anything. Maybe clips him and hurts him, but yeah, I like Tom Breese for sure with the win. The next bout we have is a bantamweight contest between Brett Johns and Ian Entwistle. Johns here comes in as a massive favorite, biggest favorite other than Joe Duffy, as a minus 440 favorite, while Ian Entwistle comes in this bout as a plus 350 underdog. And to be completely blunt about this fight, I'm kind of sick and tired of people saying, like, I mean, it's true, Ian Entwistle's a one-trick pony. The guy likes to do leg locks, and if he doesn't get the leg lock we've seen in the octagon against Daniel Hooker and Alejandro Perez, you can smash this guy. You escape and you stay on the ground with him and just punch him and it's over. Yes, he also has been successful with it in the past. He leg locked Burchak, who's not in the UFC anymore. But he's fighting a guy, Brett Johns, who's a former Titan FC champion, former Cage Warriors champion, undefeated fighter, champion of 2 major organizations, who has a well-rounded skill set, solid boxing, solid pace, 5-round experience, just a lot of things on his side here. And I don't want to think Entwistle is going to go into this fight primarily just looking for leg locks, because even though he's a beast at leg locks, I'll bet you that guy's gotten so much shit for just being called a leg locking guy. And, like, I mean, this guy's a mixed martial artist in the UFC. He obviously trains other parts of his game. Still, though, I haven't seen those parts of his game, and I can't trust him. He hasn't done very well in the octagon. Mr. Brett Johns here looked amazing in his octagon debut. He's an Englishman. Actually, he's from Wales, but basically England. And just wherever the fight goes, similar to the last fight I called in Tom Breese, I just see Brett Johns being alright. He can neutralize the heel hook game. You know, he's practiced so much in that 50-50 position. He might not even go there. You know, he's just going to outwork him. And what's cool about Brett Johns is that he's going to be drunk doing it too. So, yeah, all day Brett Johns. The fact is, Entwistle, all we really know him for is his jiu-jitsu game. If there's no jiu-jitsu in the fight, if he just doesn't take him down and it's a striking affair, you got to think Brett Johns is going to win that. And, look, Ian Entwistle could always catch him, but I think it'd be more of like a fluke. Or more of, not a fluke, but more of like a, oh, he got him. Like, that was lucky. Good for him. So, yeah, I like Brett Johns here. Yeah, this is a good fight card to bet on. I feel pretty good about these fights. Anyways, we have a middleweight contest, between Brad Scott and Scott Askham. Scott here comes into the fight as a plus 125 underdog, whilst Askham is a minus 145 favorite. The odds are close because Bradley Scott doesn't fight enough and has been inconsistent in the octagon, as well as Scott Askham, who is 2-2 or 3-2, 3-3, whatever, in the octagon. So both guys aren't the top middleweights. Both guys have okay skills, but there's ways to beat them both. And I think there's a more definitive way to beat Scott Askham. Krzysztof Joko really proved that. This is the style of fighting that needs to go down, the Demetrius Johnson style. The style where it's like you have no idea what martial art he's presenting. He's boxing, then all of a sudden he's wrestling, then all of a sudden he's on the ground using his jiu-jitsu. It's back to the clinch. Like, that's the way it's going to go. And when it comes to Scott Askham, we see that you can control him on the ground and that he's not the strongest middleweight. He's very tall and lanky, and he has good kicks and decent striking. But to get in range with him, like, he's not the most athletically gifted guy, so closing range isn't impossible. Having him against the fence isn't impossible. And these are just things that him and his team have probably noticed that I just don't think they can fix. He's going to fight the guys who are lower level and beat them because they make mistakes and stay on the outside with the guy like Scott Askham. But Bradley Scott, a guy with a good chin, a guy who's with a solid boxing pedigree, he's going to close the distance, make it a grueling fight, and he's going to steal 2 rounds. Close fight, but yeah, Askham, I don't know. I don't trust the way he fights anymore. He gets backed up, he gets clinched, he gets taken down, and he doesn't give up, but he's just not the strongest guy, and Bradley Scott seems like a stronger, bigger dude. Not taller, per se, but thicker, denser, and I just like how his tactics match with Scott. So, for that reason, picking Bradley Scott. Anyways, they're both Bradley Scott, Scott Askham. If that was confusing, I'm sorry for anyone who's watching. First fight, we have a women's bantamweight fight between Lina Landsberg and Lucie Pudilova. I don't know anything about Pudilova, and all I know from Landsberg is that Cyborg fight, but we see that Landsberg is a minus 320 favorite, while Pudilova is a plus 260 underdog. Landsberg got destroyed by Cyborg, but she's still a credentialed fighter. She's still a Muay Thai champion. She still is coming down a weight class after fighting like the best girl on the planet and now fighting a UFC newcomer. It seems like a stretch of opponents, a huge stretch of like the best versus like a newcomer. Like it's not even comparable. And seeing that she's a huge favorite, I gotta go with Lina Landsberg. I really don't know anything about Pudilova, and it's for that reason it's not a great pick. But it's a huge disparity from going from Cyborg to Pudilova. And Landsberg, she seemed very gritty against Cyborg, so that gives me the confidence that she can probably absorb anything Pudilova throws at her. Plus, girls at these weight classes, unless you're Amanda Nunes or Cyborg, finishes rarely happen. So I like Lina Landsberg, 30-27 decision, just outclasses her a little bit. But anything can happen. And to recap, what are the fights I'm confident on? There's a lot of fights I'm confident on, but the fights I'm most confident on, I would say, are Brett Johns, Joseph Duffy, Darren Stewart I feel good about, Marc Diakasse I feel good about, Lina Landsberg I feel good about, and even Corey Anderson and Gunnar Nelson I feel good about. So, and Timothy Johnson. A lot of fights that I feel rather solid about, but you never know in this game, and for that reason, it's always exciting. But for all of those who are still watching, thank you for watching, and I'll be uploading this now. So, sorry for lagging, and until next time, peace!